Marjorie, maybe you can record if we haven't started already.
I see the recording buttons.
The recording button's on.
Excellent. So shall we start by doing, there's just one poll. So we thought we would discover who's here today. Oh, good. People answering already. Fantastic. So when you get the chance to click that, we'd love to know what sector what you've been involved with during COVID. So sorry, Tracy, back to you. Tracy's from JAGS Foundation, and she's been working with vulnerable people for many years, and we're now going to hear exactly what she's been up to in the south of the borough, into Croydon as well, during this time. So is someone going to unmute Tracy? Great.
Hi everybody, great to be here, and a little bit about our Sunday Best. I'll just dive straight into it because we don't have very long. So Sunday Best has come about as a result of losing out, I think, for a lot of families and young people who rely on their grandmother or their aunt or their sisters to cook Sunday dinners. What we did is we asked a couple of families who we currently work with, what does a Sunday dinner mean? And if you could, would you like a Sunday dinner prepared? Because we know that with a lot of parents, they're having to cook extra dinners because there's no more school meals. You're at home every day having to cook for each and every person in your family. There are less abled people who have relied on their family to come round and cook for them during the weekend on Sundays. And that's how Sunday Best came about. Sunday Best is Cook Caribbean. We have a virtual cooking show between 1 and 3 on a Sunday, sharing how to cook the traditional rice and peas and chicken. And from our first Sunday Best, which was 6-7 weeks ago now, we started with 43 Caribbean meals, and last Sunday we delivered 228 cooked Sunday dinners for families, single homeless people who are living in hostels who don't always have access to kitchens, to less abled, like I said, less abled people in the community who it's just having a nice Sunday dinner, which is important for a lot of us, but we often take for granted that everybody's going to be able to cook a Sunday dinner or know how to cook your rice and peas or your jerk chicken that you're so used to getting on a Sunday from, like I said, either your grandma, your aunt, and that's how our projects come about. And it's been hugely rewarding because every week families are contacting us, organisations are contacting us who are working with families who have no recourse to public funds, who don't have the right, I guess, cooking equipment or have a nice big enough kitchen to work in, and that's how our Sunday Best Cook Caribbean has kicked off, and we are feeding families and, like I said, single vulnerable young people to a hearty, healthy, nutritious hot Sunday dinner.
Totally amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Incredible the way those numbers have just shot up. Have they plateaued a bit now?
No, they haven't actually. They're still increasing.
Wow.
We closed our book a meal, which you can book through our website, to your local counsellor, to the hubs, and we're having to close that on a Thursday, so it should be closed now because the numbers are just growing.
And how are you accessing your food?
We're buying the food.
You're buying the food.
We're buying the food. We got a donation from Lambeth a couple of weeks ago of lovely tomatoes, some rice, some tin fruit, and some sumas, which we were able to give out to families as a dessert, which was brilliant.
Amazing.
But we are actually buying our food because we know the food banks are being stretched, and we've crowdfunded successfully for the next few weeks, so it's gone really well.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Tracy. We're now going to ask Jojo Sure. I don't know if I've pronounced that correctly.
Yes, Sure. In fact, Sure would be the way to say it, but yeah, Sure is how
Sure.
I'm saying, yeah.
Okay, so Jojo has been working with victims of sexual abuse and with ex-prisoners who have probably themselves or may have experienced knife crime. Is that right, Jojo?
Yeah, tends to be like young prison leavers who have committed a crime that they've also been a victim of. It's mainly gang affiliated use. And yeah, I was working with like proper rehabilitation for them, and kind of preventative work in terms of like breaking a cycle where some of them have been groomed from as young as like 4 or 5 years old, into the violence that they then get affiliated with. Yeah.
Okay, so incredible. So tell us how you've ended up establishing Cooked Care and what that's all about.
Yeah, so I'm in my 10th week now. I initially did it because we were piloting a rehabilitation program at HMP Wandsworth, and then COVID happened. It was suspended, but we hadn't yet been furloughed. So I began doing food workshops for some young offenders that we knew that were leaving the prison soon, and we knew that they weren't going to access the appropriate services that they would have had COVID not happened. So I did only it was 2 workshops that I did in a week, and it was basically showing them how a little money can buy you a lot of ingredients and how those ingredients can be cooked to kind of provide you with a week worth of meals. So the workshops were quite long, and they were really from beginning of showing what the vegetables are, how to wash them, how to chop them, how to cook them, cooking it on the video call, and then showing them the abundance that it produces. That left me with many containers in my freezer for about 2 weeks. So I think I had about 80. I then realized, what was I going to do with the 80 meals? I then provided them to like neighbors within my vicinity of Streatham Hill. We were then told that the program that I was working on was completely suspended, withdrawn, and that we were furloughed. I knew that that would mean that my contract was going to be terminated. I just had an instinct. But then I knew that there would still be a demand for food within the neighborhood. So I started cooking for those people that I originally handed out the meals to. So it was about 40 meals initially in the first week. Second week was about 80, went up to about 150 by the third week. The fourth week was 500. And then since then, it's been anything from 180 to 250 meals per day leaving my flat. We now cover Croydon, Lambeth, Lewisham, Southwark and Wandsworth. Lambeth being our biggest, our biggest service users. And yeah, it's basically providing people with nutritious home-cooked meals. I was completely self-funded at the beginning, and then I did a GoFundMe. So I started to dilute the funding that I was putting towards it with the GoFundMe funds. And we only basically provide someone a service, and as long as that we can ensure that we can provide that service for long term. So it's not so much about getting 3,000 meals out a day to 3,000 different people. It's ensuring that once you are referred to us, that we can provide a service that sees you throughout to the other end. And that service has kind of now evolved into not just providing food. We provide various other services with various other charities that we've kind of gained relationships with. I guess I'll save some of that for another talk though. But yeah, that's what we're doing. We've now moved into the Marcus Lipton Centre. So this is our first week working not out of my kitchen, which has been a dream, because before that, all my volunteers were working remotely. So it was getting a driver volunteer to deliver food to be prepped at someone else's house to then come back to mine. It was very time consuming. And so, but it was working until last week, where I just realized it wasn't going to happen. And I luckily, actually, thank God to Virginia, who I can see this on the call. She connected me with someone that actually linked me to Marcus Lipton Centre. And yeah, the obstacles I faced was really not being able to get the donations that we needed, in terms of, it wasn't really monetary donations I wanted at the beginning. It was mainly food. But we weren't able to access those services. We were a community project, and we are not registered as a charity. So there was some barriers there that we faced. But now that we've kind of established ourselves, we're starting to get external support to kind of keep us going. And really, the people that we're providing food for has varied. The extremely vulnerable people that wouldn't be deemed as vulnerable. So they mostly cannot access any public services. So they kind of fall through the gaps. Then their circumstances get worse, which would kind of entitle them to public services. But by that point, those public services are exhausted. So we've had a lot of referrals from individuals that just cannot access the services that they would need from local authority or from government. And then we get referrals now from social services, from charities who just cannot. Thank you.
5 minutes. You've got 2 more.
And from charities that cannot provide any beyond the means of the services they provide. So that's it, I think, for the food.
That's amazing. I hope you're getting a few helpers now for your cooking.
We have 15. I have 15 volunteers on rotation, and in the kitchen now, there's 2 people always inside the kitchen, but within the centre, I have 5 people working, and we kind of rotate jobs, and we ensure that there's 2 people in the kitchen at one time, and there's packaging, there's labelling, there's writing all the ingredients, counting. There's a lot of operational and logistics that we have to do, a lot of research I have to quantify.
Yeah.
I've got five volunteers a day within the centre now.
Incredible. Thank you. Well, good luck in Marcus Lipton. Sounds like that's a good transition to.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big collaboration. So
yeah.
I'm excited.
Amazing. Thank you, Jojo.
Thank you.
We're now going to talk to Elizabeth, who has been running the Brixton and Norwood Food Bank for, is it 7 years, Elizabeth? I'm going to unmute you.
Actually 8.5 years.
8.5 years. Okay, so can you tell us a bit about what's been happening for you?
Yes, so as I say, I run Norwood and Brixton Food Bank, which had normally 3 distribution points based in Norwood, Streatham and Brixton, but we very quickly realised within a day of the big announcement of social distancing lockdown that we couldn't do face-to-face sessions anymore. It just wasn't safe, just wasn't going to work. So we've moved to our warehouse in Streatham Hill, and we are now doing a full delivery service. So we've not stopped the food bank at all. We work with all our referral partners offering electronic remote referrals. They've all signed up. And yes, they send us a referral, we pick it, we pack it, and we deliver it. We've fed in excess of 8,500 people since we started doing a delivery just at the end of March. We're giving away something like 8 tons of food, 8 to 10 tons of food every week. And yes, so we're sort of doing parcels. Our parcels are all individual, so we phone the people to find out what they'd like in their parcel to make it relevant, special diets, number of children, toiletries, pet food, nappies, whatever it is, we pack all the parcels. And we're just on our key point is to try and deliver some of the service we'd normally do in a food bank. So the whole signposting, ensuring that people have got support. So if there's issues with their benefits, if they're not getting benefits, all of those sorts of things, making sure all our no recourse to public funds mums, which are a huge number, have the support they need. We're just putting together packs for children that will go out throughout the summer, so they've got activities and books and things. So yeah, we're trying to recreate remotely what we deliver face to face normally. So Yes, we have we're based, as I say, in Streatham Hill now. We've got a big warehouse there. And if you ever drove past, it's Barkham Avenue. If everyone wants to drive past, you'll see loads of vans, cars, all lined up, double parked, because that's how we have to do it. British Gas have been helping. They do lots of deliveries for us. And it's just an amazing operation. We're having tons of food going in and out every day. It's really huge. So that's what we're doing. And yes, we'd love not to be there, which we've said since we started up. And, we think we would, if there was a time that we didn't exist, we'd love to be, but that's not going to happen at the moment. Very grateful to campaigns like the footballer Rashford helping us to get free school meal vouchers back. And we're doing a lot of campaigning around food. So yeah, that's what we're up to, making sure people are fed in crisis.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Wow. The numbers are staggering, aren't they, for all of you? The numbers just are quite, it's a shocking situation. But thanks for telling us about that. So all your helpers are all volunteers?
Most of them are volunteers. We have a few paid staff. So because there's 3 food banks now have joined together to cover the whole of Lambeth.
Yes.
There are some paid staff just because we couldn't manage it otherwise. It is a very full-time job. Yeah.
No, amazing. Okay, I'm going to ask Candice to talk to us. Is that right? Yes. So Candice has been running the Loughborough, do you call it the community centre, not the children's centre?
It's Loughborough Community Centre.
Loughborough Community Centre since 2009?
I've managed since 2009, yes.
Yeah.
Over 10 years now.
And you have a team of how many people there?
6. Team of 6.
Team
it
of
consists
6.
of preschool staff and play workers. Shall I go into what we do?
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
That would be great.
So Loughborough Community Centre is a registered charity. It was established in 1981 by local Loughborough residents. We like to think it was a positive outcome of the Brixton riots. Currently, we operate from the Max Roach Centre here in Brixton, and we deliver a range of children and family services, including a preschool, holiday play projects, and stay and play types of activities. We work with local partners such as LEAP, Fulham FC, Five-a-Side to deliver an enhanced offer for the community that we work with. Most of the children and young people are between 0 and 18 years, and a lot of the participants come from the local area, and we're in the most deprived ward in Lambeth, Cold Harbour, and many of the participants who join our activities have come from a low-income household, maybe out of work, family, or families living with disabilities. When lockdown was announced, we was operating our preschool, and the month of March was an anxious time for our parents. What we saw was that lots of the parents weren't bringing their children to the preschool, and everybody was a bit unsure about how the pandemic was going to be panning out. So what we decided within the team is that we was going to, when Boris announced that schools and nurseries should close, we had to come together and think about how we was going to keep in touch with some of our preschool parents, and it was recommended that we did keep in touch calls. Within the first week of closing and doing some keep in touch calls with some of our parents, we had a significant increase in safeguarding incidences that led to referrals over to the local authority. We knew then as a preschool team that we had to do much more than a contact call, because most of the families that we were calling, everybody was okay, yet significant events were happening. We came together, it was coming up to the Easter period where we deliver our holiday play project, and we came together and our holiday play project, we give a free meal as well as play activities to local children. So we was thinking about how we could still engage the children who would come to the holiday play project as well as the preschool children, and we devised a project which we call Happy Lunch, which has been our emergency response project for the last 11 weeks. Happy Lunch is where we give free lunch 3 times a week to local children with play resources. And the idea behind it is that we can provide a nutritious meal to the children who are participating, as well as they get play resources. So it's kind of adaptation of what we would do in the holiday play project. So it kind of worked for us over here with the play team. What we didn't realise was that we would be the only engagement for many of our families from a service that they're engaging with. So where we was expecting kind of schools and children's centres to deliver a bit more to the local children, families were reporting back that they weren't having contact with their schools or children's centres. And at that stage, it was a heightened time of anxiety. But what we did also see is that the children really appreciated and benefited from having that contact a couple of times a week from a familiar professional that we've been working with. So it's a very joyful moment for our children, despite the bleak period of time that they're in. What we do know for many of our families, that home is not a safe place. In terms of what we've done so far, in terms of our impact, we've engaged 71 families and we're reaching 140 children. And some children do it once a week, some children might do it 3 times. So there's a varied amount of participation. And we've delivered 4,179 lunches so far to date. What we are really pleased about is that we've secured the funding to be able to continue the project till the start of the summer period. So it's going to be running for the next 5 weeks before we adapt back into a summer project. But what we also recognise is during this time of transition, some children might be coming to the centre to participate in some small group activities, but some children will still be shielding at home. So for this summer, our emergency response Happy Lunch will have to continue throughout the whole summer period. We did a survey with some of our parents as to how they were feeling about lockdown and what changes had been made. And what we found out from our parents is that 75% of the participants reported that they had less money during this time, and 55% of them had less food. When we started delivering play projects at Max Roach, food and providing free meals was never on the agenda during that time. It wasn't the norm for adventure playgrounds and 1 o'clock clubs to provide a meal. What we did do by consulting with our participants is to find out what they would like within their holiday play project. And we was quite surprised in 2017 when food was a big need at that time. So we incorporated that within our holiday play project. We was able to work with our parents at that stage and develop their skills to become food ambassadors and cook meals for local children. What happened during this emergency response time is that some of our food ambassadors, majority of our food ambassadors, they're high risk to COVID. So this summer they won't be able to cook for our families. So we're thinking about alternatives, cooking methods this summer to be able to ensure that we can provide the meals over the summer period. But Happy Lunch is so much more than a meal. It's more about the engagement and just giving a child that moment to just have something for them when all the attention has been on their family and the bleak period of COVID. We wanted to do something really special for the children.
Fantastic. I think the shocker for me is that they were getting no support from anywhere else, that you were their single support. So that's my kind of like, whoa, that's just amazing.
At the start, when it was all heightened, everyone was trying to work it out, and we appreciate that. But at a time of crisis, in a time of an emergency, we have to be quick to respond. And I'm really proud of our team, how quick we got ourselves together to mobilise a project. We didn't have no funding in the beginning. We wasn't sure whether this was going to be our final and last activity, but we pumped all our resources into it. And actually, it's been one of the greatest activities that we've ever delivered. So we're very proud that we were able to be creative and be there for the families that needed us at the worst ever time.
Yeah, incredible, Candice. I've met some of your lovely ladies, your food ambassadors, and that it's just a great place. So thank you for that. Great. So I just wanted to ask at this point whether Sarah is here.
Yes,
Yeah, Sarah, brilliant. Would you like to, and is Kemi here? I haven't seen if Kemi is here. Sarah, would you like to just tell us a little bit about, and I need to get your title correct, your project, no you're not. You are Lambeth, I need to unmute you. You're the engagement officer for Lambeth Council.
And in a way, Am I unmuted? Is that okay?
Yeah, I've done it, yes.
Oh, thank you. I mean, in a way, you know, my job title is almost irrelevant. I'll cheerfully tell you what it is. I manage the consultation and engagement team, and you know, a week or two into lockdown, I sort of just became aware that there was a whole bunch of stuff going on, and I wanted to, I mean, clearly there was a bunch of stuff going on, but within the council, and I just wanted to help, really. And a lot of that seemed to be conversations around food and how to get food to people and how to make effective communication and listen to community groups and make ourselves accessible. So I suppose much of what I've done in support of that has really been quite informal, and has just been a lot of conversations. And some of the people, you know, who I can see on the call are people I've had conversations with. But I'm more than happy to provide some, you know, some statistics. So I was kind of, in a way, when I'm hearing these stories from these inspirational women, I kind of think I want to share my story, because it's all about, in a way, it's all about stories. But you're probably not here for that. So in terms of, you know, stats,
no, well, I think we'd like to hear your story, but when we know that the council had this quick response and set up these food hubs, and you know, I think about that would be amazing to hear.
Of course, no, I mean, I'm glad that's how it was received. I think it was a fairly quick response. We set up our helpline, the crisis helpline, on the 25th of March, and the food hub, the Brixton Rec food hub was established on the 27th, and we started getting those food packages out in partnership with Brixton People's Kitchen and the Healthy Living platform. Not long after that, a second hub opened at Black Prince Trust in the north of the borough, and we've delivered an awful lot of food packages. We've taken, as of last week, about 8,000 calls. We've distributed either as a result of individual calls to the helpline, or through a third party, through community hubs, where we would deliver to the hub, and then whether that be a children's centre or a community centre, you know, trusted people in the community will then take those parcels or distribute them further. So yes, 18,500 food packages. We're finding at the moment that the call volume to the helpline from individuals is decreasing. And so demand from individuals is reducing. However, that's not necessarily the case through the hubs, what we would call bulk requests. So we want to continue to support that process and to understand a little bit more about, you know, how that's working. The Black Prince Trust is now not operational, so the work is operating out of the Brixton Rec. And we'll need to continue to manage that situation. At some point, the Brixton Rec, we hope, will reopen as the Brixton Rec. So we will need, I guess, to start to think about how that continues. And then longer term, and I know some people around the table here are probably going to be involved or have been involved in conversations with us about how and what, sort of not so much if, but how and when we transition from providing that food, those food packages, to working more supportively to enable voluntary and community sector to do what they do best, but with our support. And I believe there's a couple of conversations that we are looking to have in the next couple of weeks with partners to help shape that.
Yeah, that is. That was a question I was going to ask. Obviously, you're going to sort of shrink, well, not obviously, but it looks like you're sort of shrinking this emergency aid, and then how do the communities sort of step up to support these people who are obviously going to continue to need that food? Where's that going to come from? I know there's some incredible people here doing a lot of that work, and Virginia especially is involved in that. I was wondering, thank you so much, Sarah. Is Kemi here? I haven't seen that she is.
I don't think so.
no. But that's a really useful overview, Sarah. Thank you. I wondered if anybody here tonight would like to share their story. I thought perhaps we'd just do a bit on food growing, because Myatsfield has had an amazing project that's been going on for the whole of COVID. So Tori, would you like to say a bit about that?
Hiya, am I unmuted?
You are.
You are.
I haven't prepared anything at all, but well, when the COVID first started, we were funded to do volunteering at Myers. So we stopped that because we have quite vulnerable staff who are older or whatever, you know, that they were vulnerable to the virus. So we stopped all the volunteering and we just decided to start producing plants that we distribute to people. So we've distributed seedlings to 200 households in the local area, and then Fabrice is now really busy producing plants for the summer for community organisations, and Angeltown apparently is alight with interest in food growing. There's people growing in their back gardens and on in all sorts of spaces. They've got a big community growing space, and there's somebody called Bobby who's growing in Loughborough Park, and they were going to be growing at the back of Brixton Soup Kitchen. So we're really looking, we call that backyard farms. We're really looking to see what we can do to support in Vassal and Cold Harbour, just developing as many spaces as possible for growing. There were 6 people at the depot on Tuesday when I went in who were men, who were all growing in big spaces around the area, just growing as much as possible. Somebody had a huge amount of potatoes that he was growing. So it's just really to try and get, and then we're going to think about how do we get that food to people who need it. So it'd be really good to talk to Marcus Lipton because you're local. And Candice, we work with a lot. She does food growing, and yeah.
Thank you. That's great. And just to sort of link in with that, Incredible Edible Lambeth got some funding to run a project which was encouraging people to grow from seed and then hand their seedlings on to 10 more households. And that has been had an amazing response. We've got 200 new growers in the borough, we reckon. How that then disperses and how many of those seedlings survive to harvest is another question, but we're hoping to get a bit of a take on that and understand that better. And we're also working with Capital Growth, which is running a thing called Community Harvest, and it's encouraging community gardeners to grow surplus to hand on. So for me, there feels like a lot of energy around growing, which we haven't previously seen, which I find exciting because that's what we need. We need to have more growers right across the borough, supplying all you amazing people with the veg to cook your meals. That's what we like to see happen. And then how we link it all together, which is the job that Virginia has really been thinking about, is how we link all these different partners. So essentially the idea of this get together was to say, look, all these things are happening. We know these things are happening across the borough. We know there's this incredible need. How do we now move to this next transition stage where things are probably going to get quite a lot worse? And it's going to be a very precarious time in the borough. We're really conscious of that precarity, and how do we protect these people who need to get the food. So we're very much hoping to hold another session like this where we really examine what we could do next. I did wonder if anybody wants to flag any other projects they might be involved with, because we've got some time. Anybody interested in that?
Do you want me to say something, Jane?
I'd love you to, if you're happy to.
Okay, so I'm Virginia Namarco and I run Lambeth Larder Community Food Resource, and we've been going for probably about 5 years in total, but 3 years as Lambeth Larder. And we came out of a bigger project, which was Lambeth Food Insecurity Project, which was basically looking at the community response to food poverty in Lambeth. And it was a 2-year pilot project, action research project that the council and the Mayor's Fund for London and Innocent funded. So on the back of that, Lambeth Larder was created, and what we do is we connect people to emergency food and other support. And we do that by sharing free resources. So we have our website, we produce a paper directory usually that we distribute through various different networks like the food banks, children's centres, GP surgeries, and so on. Obviously, during COVID-19, we've had the issue that a lot of those places are not open. So in terms of some of the ways that we would distribute our material, we've had to go online like a lot of other people. But we're looking at ways in which we can start to distribute paper resources again, because I think one of the things that we found is a lot of people who maybe would use our services or our resources wouldn't necessarily have access to digital equipment. They're not necessarily online, and also having paper resources, they're very free to, anyone can distribute them. You know, you can have a batch of them somewhere and give them out to your friends. So it kind of allows things to be shared in ways that wouldn't normally be, or are easier anyway. And we usually have a few pages in the Brixton blog and the Brixton Bugle newspaper, so that gets distributed to like 12,000 people across the borough. And we would normally advertise a lot of the food banks work in there. So what we try to do is connect different sectors and different networks together to get a much more cross-sector response to food poverty. So we don't see it as just a food issue, it's an issue of economic deprivation, things not working properly, with sectors not talking to each other, exacerbates the problem. So a piece of work that we've been doing during COVID has been, one was to repurpose our website. So we contacted all of the different organisations that we list on our website, and we found out what they were doing now, and just basically looked at how we could list them and the services as they've changed during COVID. So as I said before, a lot of people have gone online. A lot of the food banks, as Elizabeth was saying before, are now delivering. There's been a whole host of new services that have emerged, like the cook to care service. Lots of new providers have come on board. There've also been providers that have come offline or off board that I'm also trying to map as well. So I think there's a sense of how has the sector changed under COVID. So I'm trying to keep a track on that. And at the moment, I'm doing a piece of work with Mapping for Change. So we're producing an online map of the resources under COVID that are still available for people. So that includes different kinds of food aid service, including the different kinds of food bank, some of the community kitchens that have emerged. Some of the work I've been doing has been connecting various groups to each other. So whereas in the past I wouldn't normally be connecting people to resources, like individuals to resources, it's been more of a case of me connecting groups to resources. So things like trying to find community kitchens for people, trying to find bits of PPE for people, directing them to fundraising, that kind of thing. So it's been really trying to strengthen the sector, really, because I think, as most of us know, there's not a volunteer centre in Lambeth, so we don't have an immediate place where we can look to be connected with each other as a sector, as a voluntary sector. And I think that's been one of the big things that's been a huge stumbling block for everyone during this crisis. And it's something that we kind of need to address going forward, because as a sector, we're operating individually, and we need some way of connecting and having an advocate for us as well going forward. So there's a piece of work that's in progress, which is the map, and I'll be happy to share that with anyone as we go forward in the coming weeks. And also, if anybody's running a service that doesn't know me or doesn't know Lambeth Larder and would like it listed in some way, either on the website or on our resources, or on this new map, please do get in contact, because I've put the information on the chat. So I think that's probably it for me for now, unless anyone's got any questions.
Absolutely brilliant. I see that Sarah said, please access their incredible team of volunteers. So I hope everybody realised that. What number was that, Sarah? You said incredible, 1,500 volunteers. Wow. So yes, if you're a voluntary organisation and you need volunteers, then that's the place to go. So thanks for that, Sarah. Virginia, you're amazing, and I think mapping is the most brilliant thing. I'm married to a geographer, so he maps all the time. And Incredible Edible, we've been trying to map the borough in terms of green spaces, both from a sort of mental health perspective, so that we encourage surgeries to access their local green spaces, but also for people to see where the nearest community garden is. We think there's a piece of work there where we'd like to map the whole borough. We've got 4 at the moment, and we'd love to do many more. So that's on our, if that could overlay with what you're doing, I think that would just be amazing. And we too would like to get them into surgeries and pharmacies and community centres. One thing I was wanting to say is there are these amazing spaces all over the borough that are underused, I think, for cooking. Sarah has found them, Marcus Lipton, but I was recently in one in Kennington, very underused community centre, very well equipped kitchen. And wouldn't it be amazing if all these kitchens were producing food for their immediate neighbourhood? Love to see that happen. That's something we can aspire to. So I think there's, I don't know what the time is, I'm not keeping track. Oh, there is a bit of time. Yeah. I haven't been keeping track of the chat. Tori or Marge, are there any questions that you've seen that would be good to?
I think it's some people have been asking where they got funding from. So maybe if there's people out there that are looking to support other organisations, where did you lot find your funding from? Was it crowdfunded, or was it through Lambeth, or where did you get your funding from?
I can answer.
Yep.
Mine was through self-funding, then GoFundMe, and then just 2 weeks ago, people reaching out with monetary donations to not give, but to use their monetary donations to provide us with what we need. I struggled with communication from government and local authorities to gain funding, but that was just an obstacle I faced. So that has been like an active operation for me to get funding. It was hard. So yeah, that's how I'm kind of running at the moment, and I've secured a long-term contract with the church that are providing all our perishable goods. So our non-perishable we're still paying for, but we're in the middle of hopefully someone else has reached out to cover those. So that's how we're running at the moment.
Amazing. Tracy, I'd love to hear more from you, because I feel we cheated you of saying more. Tell us about your funding and how that's all worked.
So we crowdfunded for the first few weeks and got an amazing £6,000 through our crowdfunder.
Wow.
Which was hugely successful, and that was after 6 weeks. But leading up to the 6 weeks, we've had some funding from Lambeth. We've had some funding from LCRF. So yeah, so I'm applying for funding all the time, because also JAGS is an organisation that was set up to work with families and young people bereaved by youth violence. I lost my own son to youth violence, and do quite a lot of preventative work in schools and locally around raising the awareness of working with trauma affected young people. So JAGS in itself is an organisation that's been running for 10 years. 10 years, yeah, 10 years. And funding is a sticking point for a lot of non-profits. So people understand that we're fundraising all the time for our organisation existence. So my networks are far and wide. It's people that I know who have donated. It's applying to trusts and foundations that we currently have a relationship with, and yeah, that's how we've been tackling it. But the food donations, like I said, we're buying our food, and we've had a donation from Lambeth. Virginia's been key in helping us to find a kitchen locally, because we're actually using a kitchen in Battersea, and travelling from our cyclists are travelling 2 hours to get from Battersea with the food to Brixton and Southwark to deliver it and back to Battersea. So it works, and you know, it's not ideal, but we are working with what we can, and it's just 1 day a week on a Sunday, and we're up cooking. I have 2 community chefs as well that cooks with me, and it's just pleasurable to be able to know that it's a challenge, as with most things that are not funded. It is a challenge, but we get there in the end. We always do get there in the end, and it's great.
Incredible. Could I ask, is anybody working with surplus food? Or are you getting donations of surplus food, or is that not happening?
Yeah, we do.
No.
Through the food bank, because we've been going for quite a long time. So we have food from Fair Share, we have food from City Harvest, and then also we have some from local greens when they have excess. We have a mixture of some they give and some we buy, but because we're using a lot of fresh fruit and veg. But yeah, we do. And then we're part of the neighbourly scheme, so we can pick up from some of the other supermarkets when they have excess food.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Marge or Tori, were there any other questions in the chat that were?
I want to ask one, if people don't mind. So what challenges do people see coming, and what kind of help, what support do you think people need to meet those challenges?
Anyone like to?
I don't want to keep talking, but can I answer?
Go on.
Yeah, I think the challenge is that there's a lot of this perception that, like, once COVID is over, that I've had a lot of conversations where people have asked me, like, what my exit strategy is, and I think that there seems to be this idea that this is going to end, and with that end, our services will no longer be needed. So for me, that gives me a worry. That does that mean that the support that I'm getting now, and you know, especially because I've only recently had this, like, you know, amazing support in the last 2 weeks, will that come to an end for me? Because for some people's perception that this is only a service that I'm providing through COVID. And I have stressed to people that although I responded with this service through COVID, I always knew that it was going to be long term. I just didn't realize that the demand was going to happen so quickly, because I knew that there were various projects like mine. So I just didn't know that we would get the response that we did. So for me, that's like a huge obstacle for me. There's a lot of people that are very helpful, and then there's people that could help me long term that seem to think that I should only be strategizing through the phases of COVID. So I'm like now trying to secure partnerships and collaborations beyond I would say the orthodox path that I guess a charity or non-for-profit would go down. So that's it for me, because our numbers are just increasing, and that's not even something I'm proud of. At the beginning, we had to kind of like show the photos of our food and the numbers that we were providing to legitimize ourselves. But for me, I was always uncomfortable doing that, because the food for me is quite personal. So yeah, the demand is only increasing for us, and until that demand stops, I can't ever see that my service will ever end. And yeah, so that's my obstacle, the sustainability of funding or resources. Spaces aren't always permanent. So yeah.
Anybody else would like to comment on that one?
Yeah, I'd like to say a few words on that. Is that what you're actually finding just through engagement with families is that there are a lot of people that go unnoticed, and there are a lot of people that you may feel that are being picked up or looked after, but actually they're not. And I feel that, like, just to second what Jojo was saying, is that this has come about because of COVID. So imagine when we're talking about children at risk, when we're talking about vulnerable families, we are always talking about, we're not talking about their ability to access healthy, good food. And as we all know, as individuals, we talk about Maslow hierarchy of need, and what is one of the most essential things that they talk about? They talk about food and warmth and health, and that's something that we're missing. And I do think that Lambeth as a borough need to kind of recognise that not everyone's going to talk about food. Not everyone's going to talk about the children eating out of the chicken shops, or not being able to access food after school because their main meal at school is there. But when they get home, how do we know what children are eating healthily? How do we know our children being able to access good food? So it's something to be mindful of, that after COVID, this is what's happening during COVID, but not to forget that once COVID is finished, that these are still the same people that we're going to, the same individuals, the same children, the same families that we're going to be working with. And grassroots organisations are always the ones at the bottom that struggle. And how do we connect as organisations of individual people working on the ground to continue to provide something sustainable to help children through the next 3, 4, 5 years of their lives. Yeah, that's my bit.
For me, Tracy, you just basically summed up what we need to be doing, really.
Yeah,
is connecting and addressing these things
completely
systematically, really.
And I think that this is a good, I mean, there's lots of starting points, and Virginia's way down the line on this, but I think what this has shown is, you know, all 6, everybody engaged tonight are all you're dealing with escalating numbers, and it's not going away. And between us and together collectively, I think that message has got to get out, and how much more powerful it is if we can share this information with each other and work together to do something about it, because it's a complete disgrace that we're in this situation at all. I mean, it's beyond shocking, isn't it, that we're living in this situation. So that's a very depressing way to end. How can we end in an upbeat manner? We're going to tackle it together.
People love good home cooked hearty food. That's how we end.
Yeah. So I'm immensely grateful for you to share your knowledge, and just want to say I'm just so impressed. I think I'm going to cry. I'm just so impressed with what you're up to, and please keep going, and don't feel that you're not supported and admired and loved, because it's truly fantastic what you're doing. I think we'll call it a day before I start weeping. And thank you so much for joining, everybody. And I hope that's been an eye-opener. Well, for many of us, I'm sure it's been an eye-opener, and very sobering, actually, to realise this catastrophic situation that we're in. But we all need to work out how we're going to address it. And I know we can, because all of you are all amazing, and we can try and work something out together. So thank you, and see you at the next event where we figure out the next thing. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.